OK, bonjour tout le monde. Ça me fait plaisir de vous voir en ligne. It's a pleasure to be available to answer your questions. Before I do so, let me say this. Over the past last year, I've been engaging with many of my colleagues, ministers of industry or minister of the economies around the world. And I've been also obviously engaging with the key automakers present in Canada. Maybe Stellantis, maybe GM, maybe Ford, maybe Honda or Toyota. And meanwhile, I visited the major auto nations in the world. First, Germany, which I've been 3 times in the past year, and we signed an MOU on auto manufacturing. Korea, and we signed also an MOU with them. Obviously, as well, Japan, and now I'm here in second time in 6 months, and as well as China, which I went for a second time following the visit we had back in January. And so I have a clear mandate on the part of the Prime Minister to achieve 2 objectives. First, to bring the best technologies to Canada, and second, to be able to protect the 500,000 workers working in the auto industry in Canada. And so in China, I met with 4 different car-related companies, so Chery and BYD, also Geely and Shanghai Launch. I also met with key Chinese officials, the vice president, and also 2 ministers, one in charge of industry, the other one in charge of commerce and trade. And I was also heading a delegation of key CEOs from major national companies from Canada, including 2 pension funds, Sun Life, Canada Goose, Tech Resources, and Cameco. And now I'm in Japan. It's the end of Monday here in Japan, in Tokyo. And I met today earlier Honda, and I'm engaging also with Toyota. And so I'm willing to answer all your questions regarding the past days of work. But before I do, I will just say important words en français. And so, dans la cours de la dernière année, j'ai eu l'occasion de parler avec les grands constructeurs automobiles présents au Canada, que ce soit Ford, GM, Stellantis ou encore Honda et Toyota. Et en même temps, j'ai eu l'occasion de visiter les pays où on retrouve des grandes industries automobiles, en particulier l'Allemagne, où je suis allée 3 fois et où nous avons signé un protocole d'entente sur le secteur manufacturier dans le domaine de l'automobile. La Corée, où nous avons également signé un protocole similaire. La Chine, et où je suis allée une 2e fois suite à la délégation du Premier ministre du mois de janvier dernier. Et finalement, le Japon, où je suis ici pour la 2e fois en 6 mois, qui est un important partenaire dans le domaine du secteur automobile. J'ai un mandat clair de la part du Premier ministre qui est d'atteindre 2 objectifs. Le premier est d'amener les meilleures technologies, les meilleures voitures au Canada. Et le deuxième est de protéger les 500 000 emplois qui sont dans notre secteur automobile au Canada. Et donc, je suis allée en Chine. En Chine, j'ai rencontré 4 compagnies dans le secteur automobile, Geely, BYD, Chery et Shanghai Launch. Et également, j'ai eu l'occasion de diriger une délégation importante de PDG canadiens, dont des compagnies comme Canada Goose, Sun Life, des fonds de pension canadiens. Et dans ce contexte-là, j'ai également rencontré des dirigeants chinois d'importance, dont le vice-président chinois, ainsi que 2 ministres associés au domaine économique. Et donc, maintenant, je suis au Japon. Au Japon, j'ai rencontré Honda aujourd'hui et j'ai également rencontré des dirigeants politiques qui sont influents au sein du système japonais et j'aurai l'occasion également de le faire demain en plus de rencontrer plusieurs PDG et gens d'affaires qui font partie d'une très grande délégation de Canadiens qui sont ici au Japon. En fait, il y a 300 Canadiens qui sont ici au Japon pour faire affaire avec le secteur privé japonais. Alors, je suis prête à répondre à toutes vos questions. After you.
Nous allons maintenant passer à la période de questions. We'll now start the question period. As a reminder, one question and one follow-up. We'll start with Brian Platt. Go ahead.
Hi, Minister. Can you hear me?
Very well. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Can you give a bit more information about what you discussed when you met with the, you said 4 auto firms in China. Was this about potential joint ventures in auto manufacturing in Canada, or was this more about the import quota?
It was about both. All the different Chinese EVs automakers that I met are interested in having access to the 49,000 Chinese EVs quota, and at the same time are willing to explore creating joint ventures in Canada in order to produce in Canada. And let's all remember that there are 4 conditions for Canada to accept these investments made by Chinese automakers in our country under the Investment Canada Act, which I'm in charge of. The 4 conditions is a joint venture that would be majority Canadian owned. The second one is labor standards that are at the level of the auto industry in Canada already. The third one is being able to have localized supply chains, so localized supply, localized parts for our cars made in Canada. And finally, last one is everything linked to security of software and security of data. And so I was engaging with all these companies to see how that can be done in Canada. My goal is to be able to work with these companies in order, obviously, to, like I mentioned, bring the best technologies and at the same time support our auto workers, which are an important part of our economy and that are key to so many communities across the country.
Can you, I assume that you've watched a bit of what's happening in Europe. There's increasingly automakers there are either partnering or whatever arrangement to have EVs made in their factories. Like Stellantis is really going forward with this in Europe. Have you been following that, and do you see this as a model for how this might happen in Canada? I mean, obviously there's one Stellantis plant idled, but right now where that, that could be a possibility. But do you see what's happening in Europe with the partnerships to build Chinese EVs in those factories? Is that a potential model for how this could happen in Canada?
I think we're charting our own path, but I think also that we understand that there are 3 things happening right now in the auto sector. First, obviously, there are the impacts of tariffs, and that is having an impact on many auto sectors around the world, not only Canada, first. Second, it is the fact that we want to make sure that we are protecting our industrial base. And in that sense, we will use our regulatory powers to make sure that that's the case. But at the same time, I think that there is also a reckoning that more and more global automakers will continue to sell where they produce. And that is true for us, but that is true more and more also, even in Europe. And the third thing is the auto sector is composed of global companies that have a series of relationships and a web of different interests that actually make them think a lot about how they can operate around the world at a time where there's also an industrial revolution happening in the auto sector, at a time where a lot of the capital is going towards new technologies, including connected vehicles and EVs. So I'll give you a couple of examples, Brian. Sherry is right now going to produce at a plant that used to be a Nissan plant in the UK. And also Sherry is going to produce at a former Nissan plant in South Africa. Sherry's also partnering in Spain in order to produce the Ebro brand that used to be a very iconic Spanish brand, basically reviving the Ebro car with Chinese technology. Geely owns Volvo, and so they're already a global automaker. And so I could go on with different examples, but this is what's happening in Europe, but also around the world. But we need to make sure that we are able to do this right. And so that's why the powers under the Investment Canada Act are so important.
Thank you. Next question, Mike Blanchfield, Politico.
Hi, Minister. Can you hear me?
I can hear you well, Mike. Go ahead.
Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. You mentioned 2 trips to Japan in 6 months. Can you reflect on the mood in Japan, on how they're dealing with the economic coercion from China, and how investment ties, deeper relations with Canada, the dynamic of bilateral relations is has it changed? Have you noticed a difference? More interest in Canada or not? And just in the context of the the mood of everything Japan is going through right now with China.
Well, I think that a lot of countries around the world are weighing their trade relationships versus what is happening in China, what is happening in the US. And that's where the Prime Minister's Davos speech becomes so relevant, because a lot of it is about creating hope and offering a third way to many countries that are middle powers. And in that sense, our goal is to create that vision and make it happen in a real concrete way for Canadians, but also partnering with so many different countries that can offer that to their own populations. I think when it comes to Japan, right now, their number one industry, which they're exporting in the world, is the auto sector. And that is why our partnership with Japan is important on many different aspects, but why I'm really focusing on auto, it is key to the relationship between Canada and Japan. 77% of our auto production in Canada is Honda and Toyota, 2 iconic Japanese companies. And the decision to bring Japanese companies to our auto sector didn't happen by fluke. It happened because there was a clear industrial policy in the 80s, at a time where some of the US automakers were shutting down plants in order to diversify and in order to create good jobs. And 40 years later, I must say that those who were at the time taking the decision to bring in Japanese automakers were very wise, because we've seen over 40 years, they were not only relevant and great corporate citizens in Canada, they've never made any mass layoffs, and they've kept their auto workers even through tough times, including the 2008-2009 economic downturn, and even notwithstanding the different recessions. And so I value very much the relationship with Japan. I value very much the relationship with Honda and Toyota. And I'm convinced also that the people in Halston will be receiving good news shortly, because I think that Honda and Toyota also value very much our relationship.
What's the good news that they're going to get?
Well, it's not up to me to say, but what I can tell you is I'm confident good news is coming. And I know that there's a lot of anxiety in the auto sector, but to those working in Alliston, we have your back and we're working with the company. So stay tuned.
Quick follow-up. Can you talk about the submarine deal and how much autos is playing into that, given that both countries have industrial benefits to offer in the auto sector? And when are we going to see a decision on that?
Is that your third question, Mike?
Pardon me?
Is that your third question?
I don't know. No one's stopping me, but if you don't.
I think it is. So I am stopping you.
Okay.
Next.
Well, okay. Who's next then?
Next question, Steve Chase, Global Mail.
Hi, Minister. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you well, Stephen. And
Go ahead.
Steve, you know, don't try 3 questions just like Mike just did.
I'll go for 4.
Go ahead.
I wanted to ask you about the plans to increase the quota for Chinese vehicles every year. Are you still prepared to increase the quota every year, as you discussed in January? And what is the increase every year?
So the Prime Minister and the President, so Prime Minister Carney and President Xi agreed back in January that the quota would be 46,000 EVs coming from China into Canada year 1, which is this year. And that quota would be increasing by 5% per year in order to get to 73,000 by year 5. And so this is already set, and this was communicated back in January. So no surprises.
My other question is with respect to the United States. We have obviously CUSMA negotiations right now, and there is an increasing talk from Jameson Greer about the need for Canada and Mexico to align their external trade policies with respect to third countries. And of course, it's no secret he's talking about China. How do you expect we're going to square that circle of trying to increase or allowing an increased number of Chinese vehicles into Canada at a 6% MFN tariff, while also trying to resolve the USMCA CUSMA renegotiation, where they want us to start copying their external tariff structure, their external, they want us to align with them when it comes to countries like China and have a similar tariff and treatment?
Well, Steve, obviously, I won't give you exactly what is being discussed with the US, because we will let negotiators do their work, and that work is better done behind closed doors. But rest assured that the negotiating team is in charge of protecting Canada's interests. And that is what is happening on the USMCA negotiation front. And Minister LeBlanc is in charge of that, and the Prime Minister is leading that negotiation. When it comes to China, this is another agreement, and the agreement was clear and set in the January 2026, within the January 2026 terms. And so in there, it was clear that our fishers, our ag producers had access in a better way to the Chinese market. And at the same time, there would be 49,000 Chinese EVs coming to our market. And the only way that the Chinese automakers can have access to our market is through, first, the quota, and second, if they build in Canada under the 4 conditions I've mentioned. There's no other way. There cannot be an indirect way to do so. There cannot be a transiting country to do so. That's how it will be done.
Thank you. Next question, Yan Liang, Radio-Canada.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you, Minister. This is Yan. You just mentioned the four conditions regarding the China auto manufacturers invest in Canada. When you met Chinese automakers and Chinese officials, including the Vice President Han Zheng, what are their reactions? Do they agree with it? Because fully control the supply chain is one of the key issue with the Chinese automakers. Another thing is that back 10 years ago, when previous Minister Justin Trudeau talked about free trade, and that was the labor standard was one of the things China was against it. So how's the negotiate going on regarding this four conditions?
It is up to Canada to put in its own conditions on how auto manufacturing can be done in Canada. This is a decision we're taking as a country, and this is for our own economic security, and also to be able to indeed open access to automakers from China, but at clear conditions. And the conditions are to protect our base. And so when I say base, I mean industrial base, and so our auto workers. And so basically, we're doing things in a way that is in accordance with protecting our national interests. And I must say that Europe is going through similar decisions when coming to protecting their own auto sector, as highlighted by the new Accelerator Act, which is at the core of their new industrial policy.
So the negotiation regarding these four conditions is still going on. So this is our condition, but China's reaction might...
Can you repeat?
Agree. I mean, China might not agree with these four conditions. It's so, I mean, the negotiation is still going on. That's the correct situation right now regarding the investment in Canada.
Well, there's no negotiation going on with China. It's much more the discussions are happening between the automakers from China that are private companies that will take their own decisions, and actually also Canada. And that is how also we intend to continue to engage.
Thank you. We have one last question from Dylan Robertson. Go ahead.
Hi, Minister. Could you please speak to the third question from Mike? I'm wondering how much the auto sector is part of the industrial benefits in the bidding process for the submarines. Is that major or minor when it comes to what the countries are being asked to put on the table? And are there any specific assets of, facets of the auto sector that you're hoping will be delivered under the submarine deal?
So Dylan, I know that you want to ask me that question. I know Mike wants to ask me that question. And you know that I can't answer that question. Why? Because we have a competitive bid. And basically, we won't release any information to you or to Mike or to any other journalist, because we believe in the integrity of the process. And when we will be ready to announce who is the bidder that will be allocated the submarine contract, we will say so.
Et Madame la Ministre, pouvez-vous expliquer l'équilibre qu'on cherche avec la Chine? On a entendu du ministère de l'Énergie, Hudson, qu'on ne cherche pas à critiquer la Chine publiquement sur les droits humains. À la même fois, on fait des traversées du détroit de Taïwan. On avait un tweet sur Tiananmen. Comment expliquez-vous aux Canadiens l'équilibre que votre gouvernement cherche entre les opportunités économiques sans laisser tomber les valeurs, les questions de l'ingérence étrangère?
Merci, Dylan. C'est une très bonne question. Une très bonne question que tu peux poser à la ministre des Affaires étrangères qui va être en mesure de répondre à cette question-là. Moi, je te dirais que de mon point de vue en tant que ministre de l'Industrie, mon objectif avec la Chine est de mettre en œuvre l'entente qui a été conclue entre le premier ministre Carney et le président Xi. Et mon objectif est de faire en sorte non seulement d'ouvrir les marchés pour les compagnies canadiennes qui veulent être capables de créer des emplois au Canada en faisant faire davantage en Chine et en même temps d'être capable aussi dans le secteur automobile de non seulement bien introduire les véhicules chinois au Canada selon le quota qui a été conclu, mais en même temps de pouvoir faire en sorte qu'il puisse y avoir des investissements de la part des compagnies chinoises au Canada dans le secteur automobile qui est conforme avec nos intérêts, qui est essentiellement de protéger nos emplois de 500 000 Canadiens qui travaillent dans le secteur automobile. C'est ça, ce sur quoi je travaille.
Parfait, merci. Donc, il n'y a plus de questions. Ceci termine la conférence.
Merci beaucoup. Merci tout le monde. Thank you, everyone.